Welcome Home Radio Podcast. Are you looking to buy or sell your home? Our team is here with answers to guide you through the buying and selling process. We encourage you to ask questions. Please comment on this show or visit us at welcomehomeradio.net for more information. Bringing real estate, lending, and education together in one place, and to help you make the right home decision for you and your family.
And welcome to Welcome Home Radio, where real estate, lending, and learning come together. It is November 27th. We're hoping you're going to have a great Thanksgiving. But we have a special guest with us again. Mark, thank you for joining us this week. We're so glad to have you. Mark is a native Texan, grew up and has been 40 plus years in the real estate market and leads RE/MAX DFW Associates with 245 professional veteran realtors. Again, thank you for coming, Mark. We're so glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
We're talking this week because we really need to help people understand Fed is cutting interest rates, but those interest rates don't impact mortgage interest rates. So real quick, Tom, correct me where I'm wrong, but mortgage interest rates not affected more by T-bills. Fed rate impacts short-term interest rates either between banks, car notes, credit cards, all of that more. Can you give the overview here that I'm trying to say in a better light?
Well, I think you said it very accurately. As far as the short-term rates, the Fed influences those. That's what we see. Short-term in the world of banking is 7 years or less, typically how they translate that. So your car loans, your credit cards, just like you mentioned, those are all affected by the Fed rate and the adjustments. Our rates in the mortgage industry are set up off of the Treasury bills as far as what the Treasury bills are and how it's perceived as debt that the government issues. So that debt issuance of Treasury bills, that's what that's for. Is what the government will pay us if we buy government debt, and that's a reflection of those instruments are translated into mortgage instruments into the secondary market and how they're substantiated. So really, when we talk about the Fed rate, it has little to very nothing to do with us. The Fed rate is for two reasons. That short-term lending rate, they're monitoring inflation through that short-term lending rate, and employment. And employment still stays at one of the lowest levels that it's been at in a long time. And inflation now is not at the Fed rate 2% ideal position, but it's dropped down to the cores at right under 3% at this point. So all this is headed in the right direction as far as the economic part, what the Fed tries to influence or oversee. Whether they stay in advance of it or whether they stay behind it, it's kind of weird because they don't really have they're more reactionary than they are proactive as far as how they set policy.
So, Tom, do you see them continuing to cut as they put out and posted? And Mark, if we could, we'll get it to a 4-screen picture here. I don't like the cut here. I don't like being the large body. Thank you.
Oh, all of us really loved having you as the large body.
No.
We all look smaller.
The big head. Now there's a good one right there. Definitely a face made for radio.
Hey, here's my question with what you just said, though. I've been waiting. I'm ready to buy my first home. And my family has been telling me, wait till after the election. The rates are going to drop. The rate's going to get better. And you're telling me that really doesn't correlate the same way. So, I mean,
yeah, that's the big
looking to buy my
to
first home. Why have I
understand.
been waiting?
That's really an important part to understand. When people ask me, I always say it's always a good time to buy a house. And then I can relate back to them, it's what you buy. It's not what time you're buying it. It's what you're buying to get into that first home, to get into the second home, to move up as far as your job is concerned. All those different things occur because of life situations. It's not timing situation based on the market. The market will always be the market. I mean, and you can quote me on that. I'm sure that's very Keynesian, what I just said, or something, whatever it comes. But take advantage of the opportunities to get in front of us and buy properties. If rates are 10%, people are still buying houses. So that shouldn't be the dictum as far as what is correct. It's, is this the right house for me? Is this the right timing for me? It's not driven, I think, as much by that sensitivity to, well, the interest rates were 3%. I'm going to wait till they get back down there. You may be waiting a long time, my friend.
You're never buying a home. I'm just going to tell you right now.
It only took 50 years for it to get down that low.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And I agree that buying a home, it should happen at any time when it's good for you, your family, what your design, what your job. If you look at any liability that you have, there's so many of them more impact you. Why is it everybody's worried about a mortgage rate, yet do we realize how much credit card interest rates are? Do we have any idea? Even if you have great credit and you have those scores, that we're now over 20% on those cards, just because our own country came off of the highest grade rank of our income and our type of economy, that now credit card bills, I mean, my goodness, I'd rather have liability of a home at 7.5% than paying credit card debt, because you'll dig your hole forever. And so I mean, the only other way is to buy educational income, which is it's fairly cost effective, but you're not getting what you're paying for, evidently, what's coming out of the universities now. So the bottom line for us, the Fed cuts do not directly impact, but Mark, help us understand what you're seeing in the industry with buyers and sellers. You probably have people that are sitting on their homes, not going to do anything for a while because they don't want to transfer a 2.5%, 3% mortgage rate to a 7%. And does that make sense? And does that, what's the process you go through to help educate them, to help them understand the market and how that goes?
Well, even before we get to the home buyer and home seller, I think that one of the questions is the realtor, because we have 1.5 million realtors right now, of which 2/3 of them have never seen high interest rates. When we bought a home at 16 1/8 or 13 7/8, we thought that was a good deal at the time, and so the real estate community itself is a victim of its own of these problems, because they think 6% or 7% is high interest rate. It's not. It's across the world. It is a very good interest rate, and so you've got to have that mindset as well when you're talking with a seller and buyer. With the sellers, there's a lot of talk that sellers don't want to move because they've got that 3% interest rate and they don't want to give that up. I think there's just another underlying situation, in all fairness. My wife and I looked at 2 or 3 years ago, looked at moving into a new subdivision in Coppell where we live, and thought, why would we sell our home for X dollars and pay same amount of X dollars for a home that's got 2,000 or 1,500 less square footage? Why would we do that? So the interest rates were never the thought process. It was just that home prices have gone up so much. Why give up what you've got? So I think sometimes that's a bigger reason. But you do have to just simply educate. Most sellers today that are moving are not moving necessarily to move up. They're moving because of transfer or divorce or life change, or grandparents wanting to be close to their grandkids. And that is a huge factor in our industry that will never go away, period.
Sure.
So,
Well, and again, I think that goes back to what you said about realtors. They need to really understand what's the condition pushing them to move. What is the challenge? I mean, because my wife's already talking about it. You can do your job anywhere, Blair. So let's go move closer, like you said, to the grandkids.
Right.
Well, I can't get VA benefits in Colorado like I can in Texas. So that's unfortunately those grandkids we're not moving close to. And one of my grandkids is in Milan, Italy. I get no benefits in Milan,
Sure,
Italy.
sure.
So
But you can buy a house for $1 in Milan.
I wish. I mean, it's worse in Milan than it is in New York and LA in pricing of homes.
Yeah.
Because everybody rents there. They don't buy. That's where they're.
I have 4 cousins that now live in Europe. A 5th one soon to move. They live in Germany, Portugal, and England, and most everybody owns their home.
Awesome.
And so the home buying process there really is quite interesting compared to here. But
It does differ.
It differs greatly, and I think if you can get that big perspective of what real estate is like worldwide, then the interest rate here should not be.
So you just told us the next show that we need to do is educate on world real estate. We'll have to bring you back on and let you talk about buying a home in Milan, Italy, and what all you go through.
Well,
and as a side tag, Mark and his wonderful, beautiful wife Kay travel extensively.
We do.
They do a lot of travel.
I get so jealous watching them sometimes on Facebook. I'm like, I have to turn Facebook off because my wife's like, why can't we do that?
Well, when you got family that lives there, it makes it even easier. But I've started recently with my agents every month when we get together. I'm sharing how real estate is done in other countries. And so this last one was Croatia, where they have a 91% homeowner rate there.
Wow.
And the taxes that you pay, you pay a 3% VAT tax, you pay a 3% this tax, the buyers are required to pay a 3% compensation to their buyer agent there by law. Sellers pay a 24% tax when they sell the home, regardless of what they're doing. And
but did you say 3% is in 6%?
Still buy homes. They still want to 91% homeowner rate.
Wow.
They want to have
That's
their
an
own
incredible
home
ownership rate.
And isn't that amazing? That's a part of the American dream. But let's talk about net worth. I mean, to help educate the public out there that those that rent, their net worth it's not even in the same ballpark as it is with a homeowner just buying a home. The net worth grows, and a depreciation is the only thing that appreciates positively is your home. Depreciation on your cars, and how many of them have, I mean, in our neighborhood alone, I see all the cars and I'm like, wow, how can that couple afford that car?
Right.
And what they're doing is they're leasing the cars. They don't own them. Everything they're renting, or they don't. I mean, you have to own things. And once you pay them off, boy, net worth grows quickly. And my home has still continued to grow in value. And I'm not doing anything but maintaining it. And so people need, like you say, need to understand what benefit we have here with the 30-year, 40-year fixed mortgages. Now, are you seeing 40-year mortgages coming up in increase in opportunity for people?
I'm not at all.
You're not?
Tom may know it, but I'm not seeing that at all. So
We're
seeing
seeing
more people that want the 15-year rate, and which makes a lot of sense.
We're seeing in our company on the coast. We're not seeing it here in Texas or the Midwest. We're seeing it more on the coast, where their 40-year mortgages are allowing these first-time home buyers to buy $1 million homes. And it's just crazy taking on. But again, you've made the example. It's much better here in America overall, everywhere, as opposed to a foreign nation, where it's an arm, where it's adjustable, and where you can be impacted greatly 2, 3, 5 years down the road with that mortgage instead of being it fixed.
And Blair, I'd like just make Tom probably knows a little bit about this, but we've owned 6 homes in our life. The very first home that we bought in Oak Cliff for $28,500 and sold it 11 months later for $39,900, and kept moving up the ladder. And so we kept putting the equity in until the home we're in now, we basically, paid about 75% down just from the equity we had over the years. But we started out at a 9.5% interest rate, then it was a 10.5%, then it was a 13%, then it was a 16 1/8. the interest rate didn't matter. It was the equity that you were going to get in the home to be able to move to that next home. To me, that was the value.
Then what's going to get somebody that's brand new in the world today educated like that to understand that springboard effect, that you don't need to what mom and dad have immediately with you need to start off with your own small tiny home, whatever it may be you can, and help starter home springboarding up every time. How are we going to educate the public? I mean, it just seems like I've got more kids out here trying to max out everything they've got to get into a home, and I try to educate them on, look, you're going to be home poor. You can't afford to turn the lights on if you buy this home, and what you're going to be able to do, you're going to be staycationing all the time. If that's what you want, I just want you to understand that. But how do we educate them?
It's difficult. I mean, many of our kids have grown up in upper middle class neighborhoods in our town. We have 1,000 graduating each year, but yet the restaurants cannot find help. We have restaurants that close because kids don't work, that don't need to work. Mom and dad doesn't make them work, and they don't learn the value that, I worked all the way through college. I paid my own college. I was mad at the time for doing it, but I am so appreciative that I learned the value of the dollar in doing that.
Mark, you just said a very trigger button for me. None of my kids, I paid for their university. If they wanted to go to a university, they paid for it. I had to pay for mine. They paid for theirs. But that comes back to the parents of saying, look, you have to learn the value of your time, the money that's put in here, because yes, there's a lot of kids going off to party schools, not getting an education, and then they don't know what to do with it.
Right.
And they've got so much debt, they want it to be forgiven. Well, I'm sorry, there's nothing forgiven here by the U.S. government that's not paid for by the taxpayer. Somebody's paying for it. You have to understand that, and people don't. And it's not, why should I pay for something that you decided to do? There's consequences, and they want to avoid consequences. But that's the generations we have. We have to take time to educate them, help them understand. What other concerns, guys? Tom, Jeff, what other concerns do we have with the cut rate, interest rate situation? What do we need to do to educate these buyers to help them grow and know that this is a good investment wherever they go, that it's helping them in their future? Because net worth is not taught by anybody that I know of. Net worth is amazing. And I think it was Einstein. Was it Einstein that said, if you understand compound interest, you succeed from it. If you don't understand it, you pay for it. And compound interest, that's what we're seeing.
Here's a thought I'd like one of you guys to expand on. You have folks like a Grant Cardone and some other people out there that are very wealthy, that have big followers and a big position of people who listen to them. And they're out there promoting, oh, I just rent. I'm a rich guy. You don't want a mortgage. I don't know if y'all have heard this, but I use that name. I'm sorry. I don't know him. I know how his popularity and things that go on, but why are someone is in that position telling the world, hey, don't buy, just rent? Have y'all heard that? Am I off too far? Or, I mean, someone expand on, you've got generations of two generations listening to this, and they don't have the wealth that he's built. Congratulations to him and others like him, because he's not the only one. But if you guys have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear it.
If I gave my thoughts on that, I would be called a conspiracy theorist and probably disowned, and you're crazy, you're a nut job, all of that. Because when the wealthy talk, why is it I value your opinion? Okay, you have succeeded in whatever. I'm also going to sit here and say, I know for a fact that some of these wealthy people own most of their homes, but they rent the one and they want to talk about that one. On the backside, they're not getting the whole story. Okay.
Thank you.
They're smart. They have net worth. I mean, here, I'll educate you on a little something that I was shocked about. Reverse mortgages. If your impact of reverse mortgages is negative, then why is it 75% of the people that use reverse mortgages are multimillionaires? So understand there's something about what you're told by media and what's reality. And hopefully you can learn and ask questions, because what does it say in the Bible? Seeking wisdom is the start, or seeking understanding is the start of wisdom. And we need to understand that. And I'll just say, for those people that are announcing that, there's a whole nother reason why they're doing it.
And that's really why I wanted to bring it up for anybody who might catch this show or have someone in their family thinking about it and hanging on the line because they hear this. It's not all out there as exactly how it's set.
It's not reality.
The setup is not the reality of it.
Does anybody else have an opinion on that?
Well, I would just like to say that the people that I've heard that from are the young tech guys who've done well, proud of them, they've done great, but they're still boys and they haven't settled down yet. When they get married and have kids, if that ever happens, life may change for them. But why buy a home if you're just going to be jetting all over the world all the time and doing fun things and what have you? So, when they grow up and become men, I think you may see them a little bit differently in that. That's just a personal opinion. So,
well said, sir. Right. Well said.
Well said than I did. But well, it's very, very true that we need to understand the market and we need to understand what's happening around us. The Fed, which is not a government entity, which is not an official part of the U.S. federal government, but they call it the Fed. I don't know why, but the chairman is appointed, but who appoints the other people a part of the Fed? Do we know? Tom?
I don't remember. I can't remember. I think all the Fed directors, the 11 of them, are done with congressional approval. I think they have to have Senate approval, if I recall correctly. Because every time they do a regional replacement, I know it goes in front of the Senate.
Yeah. But also understand that all those directors are not voting members on the Fed at the same time.
Right. 7 of them are.
7 are only voting. The other 4, 5, 6, I thought it was 8. There was 15 total. But they're not voting members at the same time. So therefore their views, their dovish ways or their bear ways are considered into that and give an impression. Right now, they say they're going to cut in December. That's a full point Fed cut in 1 year, and they're planning on cutting in 2025, one more full point. That at a quarter of percent of time. In doing that and helping to get inflation in check, but if we have a growing economy and we can actually get true jobless claims reports properly by BLS and as well as ADP, do we see that impacting us, or is it more going to be on inventory of homes that's going to bring prices down that makes things more affordable? What way? So much is lined up on the Fed rate, and it's, for me, the Fed is the 14th most important thing. The interest rate is the 14th most important thing in a loan as opposed to the number one. By media and all, we've made interest rates more important than the actual loan program. What's the best one for us? I'm very concerned that educating, again, the public on what is the best value, because, Mark, veterans have a given ability to buy a loan or buy a home at 100% financed. It's a benefit they earned. But yet VA loans are looked down upon by the listing agents for the most part. I'm not saying your people are, but would you agree there's a ranking of the type of loan, and that sometimes misses out opportunities for people? Would you agree with that statement, or how would you restate that?
There is definitely a ranking with VA being at the bottom. That is true. I do think with the interest rates a little bit higher than what they were a 3 years ago, that there is a new mindset of the value of FHA and VA being assumable. Of course, there's a lot of conditions to the VA being assumable, but there's a new mindset on that it can bring more money when you go to sell the home. And so I'm seeing we have more more activity. And the only issue with VA right now is there's just so few veterans that are buying, that are in the marketplace, because we've not been in a war, so supposedly not in a war, and but we just don't have that many veterans like we did a generation ago.
Now you talk about assumables. How many? I mean, I see some negatives with that, because one, an assumable is going to take 45 to 60 days. Two, going through the contracts of assumables, and they have to qualify with that same lending entity that the loan is with.
Right.
I see that drawing out the process as opposed to being of benefit. Is that, I mean, are you seeing a real increase in the assumables on this?
We are. Although it's a much further drawn out process, the seller is happy because they may be getting $10,000 more for the home. The buyer is happy because they may be getting a 3% interest rate. So they're willing to take the benefits with the negative to make it work. So we are seeing that. The problem we have with VA assumable is you just have to find another veteran, which is just almost doesn't exist.
Not true. Not true. A Patriot American can assume a VA loan if approved. It does
they can assume it, but they don't get the release of liability, right?
No, the VA does not release, whether it's going to another veteran or not. They never get release of liability. Never.
Yeah.
And that's why,
and that works fine if it's a veteran that's my age. Is never, they're never going to use their VA benefits again. But for a young guy, he may want to use his VA benefits again.
Definitely.
It's just it's a catch, as what works for you.
That's interesting. I had not heard that was on the uptick. I think that's great. But every time I've tried to do an assumable, it ends up not going through, just for several factors. One, release of indemnity is a critical piece, and I wouldn't want to sell a home or give away a home and then still be liable for it.
No.
You'd make more money on a wrap, which we don't really.
Well, and for loan officers these days, I mean, the market is a little bit slower than what it has been in the past. You got 40% of all home sales, at least in our company, being cash. So the amount of loans that are even available for loan officers, you can see why you talk about the huge reduction that's going on in the amount of loan officers. Yeah.
We're not surprised. We're not surprised. And the closing of companies is happening. And it's going to happen even more once CE time and Tom doesn't get so busy with continuing education, all this. December, we're going to see a lot of loan officers just fall off the map because they're going to let their license go. And closing of companies have happened, merging, that sort of thing. Recruitment is really up in our industry. I get more phone calls on that alone.
Yes.
But it's crazy. But I think if any loan officer can get through this time, it's going to be better on the downside, because the piece of pie that's available to us is much larger. But it has been a hard year for us. I would say every loan officer has said we're in the 45 to 55% decrease from year to year. So, but that is so true, because you're right. Cash deals have happened, and Jeff's doing all that business and not letting me in on any of it.
Well, and the margin on for the loan officer is just gotten to be ridiculous.
Right.
It really is. I read a report the other day what the average compensation is to the loan officer now is. I mean, I feel for you guys. I'll just put it that way. So.
Well, Mark, let's get together after this, okay? Well, anybody else on the Fed, the cut rates? Tom, have you got any inputs you want to give? Jeff?
He's half asleep. Look at his eyes are closed.
He's half asleep.
There we go.
Hey, you're back.
You froze for a minute, Tom.
Welcome back.
I got this light blaring off my glasses. I should take those off.
Yeah, you should.
But then I can't see anything. Everything becomes blurry.
It's just tough getting old, isn't it?
Where did
Tom?
Jeff go? Where did Jeff go?
Well, I thank you so much, Mark, for taking the time today to help us talk about the Fed, what it means if they're cutting rates. Does it directly impact our industry? You also gave us a great insight on educating future buyers on this, and that exactly helping them understand the steps to getting to home ownership, as well as what are priorities, what are the things they need to do. Help them understand where they can contact you and your group and where we can find you.
Sure. Remax DFW Associates, we have 5 offices. Coppell is our corporate office, our original office, opened in 1983. We also have Flower Mound, Frisco, Richardson, and Dallas in the Lake Highlands area. Website is Remax, RMDFW, Dallas Fort Worth, RMDFW.com.
Wonderful. And he's got 245 experienced expert realtors. Contact him. Let his team help you out. Let him start educating you on home buying. If you're interested in buying, selling, transferring into the area, I know you've been here 40 plus years. You've got the experience.
Average agent's been in the business for 19 and a half years. They know
Wow.
what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
So they've got a lot of experience and expertise. Let them help you. We look forward to it. Mark, thank you for joining us. As always, Tom, Jeff, God bless you. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Let's go into our wonderful Christmas season joyfully, happily. Thank you again. God bless.
Thank you.
Welcome Home Radio production provided by Lunatic Digital. Check the listing of this podcast for the links to our sponsors. And don't forget to like, share, and follow us on social media. Visit welcomehomeradio.net for more information. This was a Lunatic Digital